Dang, man, I still forgot. I gotta update that
I
damn
was gonna
video,
say,
man.
where's my practice device at?
Man, I don't know what I'm doing. You know what? I did it, and then what happened was, I did it, and then I was like, let me just test it out. And usually, like, I'll go back and I'll update it after the fact, and then I just never got around to it, even though I was traveling all yesterday. Anyway, we made it, Mike. Another day, another show. Let me turn off this light a little bit. It's getting a little bright in here. How you doing, buddy?
Good, good.
I'm ready to talk U.S. Open, Mike. I don't know about you, and
Yeah.
from everyone who's just tuning in, I want to let you guys know you're gonna want to keep an eye out on this show because my buddy over here is fired up today. We were talking before we hit live,
I just
and Mike was just
I don't want to
on a
talk about I
tear.
don't want to talk about the US Open. I want to talk about how good Johan Chua was at the Battle of the Bull and how much
Okay, well then, well,
I
I
respect
didn't
his game.
I didn't have him like I mean I had him listed obviously in the list of topics to go and discuss today. I did not have him number one, but since you went ahead and brought him up, Mike. Let's just go ahead and jump on into it because I love stories, you love stories, and this was certainly one for me yesterday. And I didn't get to watch a whole lot of the event, if I'm being honest with you. But yesterday, when I was traveling, I got to sweat some of it as it got down to like the business end of it, and then of course today, I'm sorry, not today, but the final yesterday was just pretty epic, and he put on quite the show, man. What was telling for you?
Just I just think there were a lot of good stories that come out of that. Shane in another final back to back. Chang in another semifinal. I mean, where the hell did he come from? Chua winning. That was a really good lead-in event to the U.S. Open. It really, you get an indication that there's some guys who are in, there's some guys who are in pretty good form right now going into the U.S. Open, which makes it wide open. So, I just think that's a cool thing. You know, Chua, we know what he can be like. So for him to get into the winning column again this year in a WNT event, that's great. It's going to make for a really good wide open U.S. Open.
It does get me fired up as well, Mike. And I like I mentioned a second ago, I love stories and all the drama over the last 3 weeks or so. Seeing, I don't even want to say redemption because it's like I don't even know what he was necessarily redeeming himself from, but it was just like to show the resiliency and the nerve to go out there and perform, and essentially, which is like the warm up to the U.S. Open in terms of like depth of player field and
Yeah, it was
things like that.
great
I mean,
field.
outside of the Co brothers, it's basically a U.S. Open at your corner bar, and they're battling it out on diamonds as well. And so it was just it was great. But I love seeing Chua get back to another final, Mike. I mean, I'm a big fan of his as well. Oh man, here comes the trolls already for you, Mike. Talking about your 77 billiard message. What did you get into over there, Mike? Do I gotta
You know what?
do I gotta keep an eye on
Here's
your
the
social
thing.
media?
Let me set the freaking record straight.
Set the record
I
straight, please.
tried to defend Chua and saying that there are more people in the U.S. that like Chua than that are riding the wax train, and I
Okay.
got ridden on for doing that. You know what? Fine, whatever. I'll never talk about the guy again. If you don't want me to, I'm good with it. I think he's a great player. I have no. We talked about it that show when Waxgate came up. I have no interest in Waxgate. I have no interest in whether someone does it or not. I'm happy that like the WPA and the WNT are going to at least acknowledge that this is something players are talking about, and they'll come up with some way of overseeing it. And once that happens, then we don't ever have to talk about it again. So it's probably good that it got here at some point or another.
Yeah.
How it got here, who got accused, whose nations are butthurt, and whose aren't, don't really care. Let's just move on. I like all the players. They're all great players, period. The Filipinos are, the Asians are, the U.S. players are, the Europeans are. You know, eh, let's just play pool.
You had me until like you're rooting for everyone because not listen, we're not giving out fucking participation trophies here, Mike, on this show. Let
Yeah,
me just keep it real with you here. But like I get what you're saying in principle, and I can certainly appreciate it. I feel like social media kind of gets blanketed in terms of like this, nation versus nation argument, and Americans are against Filipinos or whatever. And like you mentioned, there's certainly a lot of fans of Chua. And you got two of them that are sitting right here live on the show for you guys. And so, but yeah, no, I think that as happy as I am to kind of see things get brought to light, the manner in which it was, we mentioned before, wasn't necessarily the best.
No,
Accusations
right.
without proof wasn't necessarily the best either, and certainly not something that I can like get on board with. But like in terms of like getting resolution towards
Yeah,
issues,
sometimes it takes something like that really outrageous to
yeah,
get the people who are decision makers to say, okay, we've got to address this and at least put it to bed. I likened it to guys using foreign substances, pitchers over the years using foreign substances in
yeah,
baseball, right? And finally they said, okay, let's just alleviate suspicion and just take that whole part out of the game by checking the pitcher every time he walks on and off the field. Fine. Nobody argues about this anymore. Nobody even talks about it
yeah.
anymore. Nobody worries about it anymore. So sometimes you need to just get pushed to the point where you take something, and I don't know who X's and who doesn't, don't really care. I just like that they're addressing the situation that this could happen, and we're going to stop it from even being discussed. That's the main thing. Just don't talk about it anymore.
The irony of like that example, Mike, is that like the part that kind of gets overlooked throughout all this is that there's been this like culture of acceptance or looking the other way in terms of the locker room, no matter where you're at, because you can talk about players that change teams, but like they're all aware of what happens, with pitchers. They're out there day in, day out. They know who's doing what, who's gaming which way, and who's not. And it's no difference in terms of how this can relate to billiards or how it's kind of made that transition. I feel like now social media has kind of made it this opportunity to be able to talk about things, and it can definitely be a slippery slope no matter which direction that you go and take it. But seeing players finally stand up for themselves is great, and I'll always, celebrate that. Now going about it, like you mentioned, as far as going after like specific players, that part was a bit of a reach for me and still will be. But as far as it getting out there, look, I love, like I mentioned, I love seeing the redemption part of it, Mike. I like seeing he went through a lot, did Chua, during all this, and you kind of saw it through bits and pieces of social media, and it's great seeing guys go through the bullshit and then still come out and show that, hey, I'm a winner. I'm a winner no matter what. And Chua going out there on that big stage, and this isn't like some regional Asian tournament like he's been a winner in the past. Not including Hanoi. I mean, like as far as like those
Yeah.
CPBA tournaments, things like that. This was a pretty big event, Mike. The who's who of players, like we mentioned, and so to kind of see him weather all that, come through it, be a winner, beat Shane. It's not like you were there beating, a Vitali or a John Moore or whatever, like in these regional events. Like that's a pretty solid win for him in that regard, Mike.
Yeah, it is, and I don't know. I'd have to talk to people there. Everybody on social media just keeps having this like back and forth. Who's proven supremacy, who's backing up what they're talking about, who's still full of shit, whatever. I don't notice. I didn't notice just from watching video or whatever, or see comments, that it seemed like amongst the players there was a lot of animosity or chest thumping or I'll show you or any of that. I just think that they went and played pool like they always do.
Oh, you
So
mean like out there specifically,
yeah,
Mike? Or
yeah, in
yeah,
Virginia, in
yeah.
Virginia, I didn't hear anything about players like giving other players the eye or you know,
Look, I don't think you had to give him the eye if you're Chua after that post that you made regarding your response to it, Mike. When you start putting, he was basically calling out guys without calling out guys. If you saw the flags that were posted at the end of it, he's like, "Hey, guess what? I know who you are, and just so you know that I know what's going on here." And so, and I think that it was in that aspect about as classy a route as you can go and take, all things considered, you know. But no, I think that there's certainly some, rumblings and rumors, and I'm just speculating here, Mike, because I haven't talked to anybody. who was out there. But just knowing the culture and knowing the guys like the way that I think I do, um, I'd imagine that there's just some. If you start pecking around in there, which I'm hoping you will this week when you go out there to Atlantic City, I think you'll find that like there's going to be these clicks that maybe weren't there before, or maybe are more prominent now, or maybe are more defined now because after this, when you start putting names on people's reputation, whether in a positive or a negative way, somebody's going to feel some kind of way about it, and this is going to be no different, Mike. And I think there's still going
Yeah,
to be
we'll
some.
see. We'll see next week at the U.S. Open. Everybody's going to be there. You know, um, you know. I hope they all face each other. If anybody's got any animosity towards somebody else, I don't know who's who, but let them play each other. Let's see what happens. It'd be kind of fun.
So this is what I'm rooting for, like in my final eight, real quick. So since you didn't ask me
Kachi.
directly, it's gonna be Kachi versus Patrick Gonzalez in the final eight. Okay, then you're gonna have, and then that's on one side. Then you're gonna have right below that. We're gonna go with Federer versus Vitali underneath. Okay,
Okay.
there's another storyline. Then
Josh has
on
got
the
to be in there. Josh has got to
damn, I
be in
didn't even think about Josh. Okay, hold on. We'll have Josh versus SVB. Okay, and then the final two, we're gonna have Carlo Beato. Oh no, man, I got to throw the Co brothers in there somewhere. Well, Carlo Beato versus Chua somewhere in there, in the final eight as well.
What
So I
about
want
you? Come on, didn't Yep get called out for being anti-Asian against the Asians?
okay, scratch the last 30 seconds. We'll come back and we'll revisit it later on as the tournament winds down. No, listen, it was a fun weekend. Kudos to the Wolf's Den for putting on the event, Bull
Yeah,
Carbon for sponsoring it. It's really become this premier event over the last like 3 years where
yeah,
it's just
probably
kind of jumped on the map. Yeah, I mean,
one of
kind
the
of like,
biggest, one of the biggest WNT regional events anyway.
yeah. And, I guess I would kind of put it like akin to like a U.S. Open, not U.S. Open, an international Open type event. And so just in terms of like, I don't want to say on the same level as International Open because um, he does a great job in that regard, but it's kind of standing on its own. But it's kind of been that like that next tier right below it, in my mind. So really
Yeah,
great job there.
good job.
I'm excited for what next week has to come, Mike. But there was another gentleman there in that final, and that was SVB. And talk to me about how great this guy is still at 41 years old, and more importantly, do you think that he can get number 6 by the end of next week?
Well, we talked about this after the Florida Open, even before Battle of the Bull, and my comment then hasn't changed at all. It's like, listen, this guy is showing everybody he can still, he's not an underdog against anybody. And so, can he win 8 straight matches and win, the U.S. Open? Yeah, of course he can. So, his game hasn't slipped. His determination hasn't waned. He's still, if he's going to if he's going to spend his time and money going to a tournament, he's playing to win, right? And so, yeah, can he get there? Is it, you know, tough to get the U.S. Open final 2 years in a row? Yeah, it'd be tough to do that.
Not
Last year I was like,
in your
you
early
really
40s.
wanted him to win last year because you thought this could be his last shot. But who knows? So a lot of things got to go in his favor. He's got to play right at the right time. He's got to, not. It's just things have to roll good for him, like they do anybody who wins a tournament. So you got 30 guys who could win that tournament, and I don't know how many of them. They've all got to get good rolls and at the right time against the right people. And so, you just never know who it's going to be until you get to that final match. But he can get there. There's no doubt about it. I mean, he's still one of the top 3 or 4 betting favorites, right?
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and that's with like,
So,
and that's not one of these. That's not like one of these guys who is being promoted as a top guy without the resume. Like that's a guy with 5 U.S. Open titles. That's a guy with a world championship in the last few years in multiple disciplines. And so the betting favorite aspect of it is certainly well deserved, especially considering how the last 2 events have gone, Mike. And we talk
yeah.
about current form all the time on this show and how much that's valued and momentum and all these things. And when you compare that with the it factor, and very few guys have it. But like we mentioned before, that dude's one of them who has it. You know, he can put the fear in you before he ever breaks the balls because of his shadow and how big that cast. Um, Look, I thought last year was like perfect, and if it wasn't for like the propel jump cue that Federer pulled out of nowhere to beat him, I still think that SVB gets number 6 because he played as good in that final as you can
I
ask
agree.
for.
Yeah,
Especially considering like the storyline and just everything that was going on during that time. Um, Ahead of the U.S. Open last year, Mike Federer and Shane played this race to 120, and it springboarded them into what was probably one of the best finals that we've seen in recent years. And I feel like, in some regards, that rematch from whatever it was 6 weeks ago or 2 months ago is kind of the same thing, Mike. It's kind of springboarded Shane into having this chip on his shoulder. And I think back on this post that he made right after, or maybe in recently, when he's talking about like, hey, I'm still playing good. Like, in case you guys forgot, I'm still playing good. And these bigger name guys, Mike, like we've mentioned before, just play different when they get inspired. And it's hard for them to get inspired when you have such a big resume and such a decorated career like Shane has had. But that dude seems to be inspired. He seems to have found his break too, which, oh, by the way, that's a scary thought.
yeah,
And so for him to be in back to back finals is, number one, just awesome in and of itself, considering the fact that, like we mentioned, outside of the Cole brothers, pretty much everybody was there, you
yeah.
know, and so to go back to back in fields like that is one thing. Odds are in his favor in terms of betting, but odds are against him in terms of his age, you know, because now he's been playing deeper than anyone else over the last 2 weeks, Mike. And what factor is that going to have in terms of fatigue coming off of, playing deep into Sundays the last couple of weeks, Mike, heading into
Ask
the biggest event of the year.
ask Federer how fatigued Shane gets over a couple days.
Touche, Mike. I can't even, that's the end of the show. We're just going to leave on that note because that was a mic drop moment for you, buddy, for sure. That's a fair point,
I mean,
Mike. That's
really,
a
the
fair
guy can
point.
still, he can still grind as long and as hard as anybody. So, and we talk about age, 41, but 42, whatever it is, Carlos 41, and he playing, just won the world championship. Age is not, you know, a factor with these guys anymore. At least 40, early 40s isn't anymore. These guys are all still top of their game at 40. So I don't think that comes into it. To me, it doesn't.
I will still put a little bit of weight on it to some extent just because of history, but then that dude has defied it over the last couple of years. And it kind of reminds me of, like, for years how we said, oh, Efren's done, he can't win another big tournament. And then, like, during the midst of like that 5 year conversation, he goes and snaps off this big Philippine 10 ball event.
Yeah.
Like, and this was like in the past 10 years, you know what I mean? But certainly within that conversation. And so it kind of reminds me of that to some extent.
But now
I
you're talking,
remember this.
now you're talking guy in his 50s. That was remarkable.
Well, yeah, but still, it's
Early
like,
40s to early 50s that's a decade difference with your eyes and your nerve. So
it's still like, and I'm considering things just in terms of like how young the circuit's gotten lately and how much tougher that it is
yeah, no,
to
that's
go
what
and
makes
win.
it even more. It's what makes their accomplishments even more
Yes.
remarkable.
Yeah. And it's the depth of the field, like early on, you're going to have, um, uh, you're going to have dead money like you do in most of these open events, but this is like a little different, especially as it gets down to like the business end of it. And it'll be that way, and now the guy who's ranked number 40th can still go and take you out, versus if you're playing an American only tournament, the guy who's, 40th in that field has no chance of beating you, so it's night and day. Um, Different. But I remember this time, Mike, when we were in Everett, and it was for the Don Weir. Shout out to my buddy Jason, our buddy Jason, who puts on a great event every year out there in Washington. And we get there. We were there early on in the week, and we're doing fishing and all this fun stuff. And then in the evening, we'd go hang out at the pool room where they were going to be hosting the event later on this week. And somehow throughout the night, Shane's drinking, right? And doesn't drink very often. And he does a little bit more now, but like, he was kicking back a few beers that night and enjoying himself. And the conversation came up like, well, what else do you want to do like in your career? Right. And he didn't even hesitate. You know, it was like snap call, six
Yeah,
U.S. Open.
yeah,
You know, and winning the six means a lot of things to him. You know, Earl means a lot to him, and to go and beat Earl and get a six means a lot to Shane. You know, and to do it again in a modern era, I think is like akin to what winning the world championship was to him for so many years, Mike. You
yeah.
know, it's held to him like here in that same regard, or maybe at this point in his career, considering the fact that he's gotten that U.S. Open 9-ball world championship off his back, right? Um, but I remember he was like, and I'll paraphrase here because Shane was a little off the cuff, but he was like, you know what? When I win that six U.S. Open, he's like, that might be it. You know, he's like that's what he wants. He wants, and I'm not saying he'll retire if he wins, but like, believe me, that's what that dude wants. He wants to. He will be very content if he rides off in the sunset with that.
I think if he wins it, he'll find something else to drive him, because that's what Shane needs at this part of his career, is to have those things like a six U.S. Open to really drive him, to really make him work as hard as he did when he
Yeah.
was 30, right? And so, I think that if he won the six U.S. Open, he'd find something. I want to win a second. I really want to win a second World 9-ball, or whatever it is.
Well, it'll be
You
the
know,
world 10-ball
I
after
want
that
to
for
win
sure.
Hanoi. Well, they won't, maybe not drive him as hard as these other ones have, but he's one of those guys who needs something to really drive him.
Well, that kind of goes back to what I was saying at the beginning, Mike, is that like it's the Federer, it's the chirping that happened after he gets his ass whooped from Federer by 40 games is what he's like, "Oh, by the way, I'm still playing good in case you forgot." You know?
Right.
And maybe seeing some of the shit that was said online or listen, Shane's very aware. That was an embarrassment what happened against Federer. He was not expecting to go in there and get embarrassed like that. I guarantee you he would not have shown up if he's thinking that he's not going to put up a fight, let alone get beat by 40 games, you know? And so finding that chip on his shoulder to go and inspire him obviously lit some kind of fire because it's no coincidence, in my opinion anyway, that he's coming off of back-to-back finals considering the timing of it all, you
Yeah.
know? And so what we look for in terms of stories, it gets no bigger than that dude from South Dakota going into what Barry created all those years ago, you know, and what a special event that means to him, what it
Yeah.
means in terms of like American legacy, international legacy, all these things, especially. And then, oh, by the way, you tack on the fact that it's double prize money compared to last year, Mike, you know,
Yeah.
which money does get that dude up at the end of the day as well, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. 100 grand.
so
It's good money.
it's going to be pretty good, Mike. Look, there's going to be a lot of things that are going to give him an out to not win his sixth U.S. Open. Like we mentioned, the depth of the field and all these things, and rolls going your way, and et cetera, et cetera. Everything's got to go right. But boy, what I want to see him in a final eight, Mike, with at least a swing at it. You know,
Yeah.
let him be at the plate, and everyone's going to be watching. You know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, listen, a lot of people rooting for that Matchroom among them, because you're looking for storylines and drawn eyes and getting people into the arena. That would do it.
What are some other stories that you're looking out for this week, Mike, ahead of the U.S. Open?
Um, well, you just want to, you want to see who's going to show up, and I want to see how Yap does. Talk about a guy who's in good form. Um, yeah, it was going to be interesting to see how he does there. I've got my eye on FSR, waiting for him to make another big swing at an event. It's been a little bit of a while. I mean, he's always up there, but talking about Final Four, Final Two, Carlo coming off the World Championship, can he do what Federer did last year, which is do the World Championship, U.S. Open doubleheader? A lot of good opportunities out there. Federer,
Yeah,
champion. So yeah, lots of
the Federer repeating part is interesting to me because every time like you try to say like, oh man, there's no way he can continue this consistency or this level of domination, you know, it's like he digs deeper than where he was at before, you know, and he seems to play sharper, and you're gonna have to catch him in one of these rounds where, like, it reminds me of yesterday where, you know, Huang was up on him. I think it was like 5 or something, or 8 to maybe a little bit more than that, Mike, maybe 8-3, something like that. And but it's like if you can't close that dude, not only will he close you, but then he's going to close out the rest of the tournament as well. You
Right.
know, and Federer will find himself at times in tournaments like in these slippery slope type things, and everybody does, right? But he has this level of resiliency and drive and the it factor and the break and the jumping and the kicking, and just list every attribute you can go and imagine, and he's pretty much there at the top of it. um
Well, it's kind of like, we kind of said that about Josh a few years ago. It's like,
yeah,
if he's in a situation where someone's got a chance to put him away and they don't, that makes him even more dangerous going on to the next match. Makes him even more dangerous for the rest of the tournament. And that's what we saw with Josh for a couple of years. And
do
now
you still think Josh has that?
he hasn't shown it. Do I think he still has it? Yeah. I mean, what is he? 26,
Yeah,
27,
yeah,
maybe.
yeah. I mean, I don't mean like in the grander scheme of
He's
things. I
got a
just mean
lot
like
of
as a whole.
he's got a lot of trophies ahead of him. So, but there's no doubt that he has not. He won the European Open this year, but his consistency hasn't been there. I mean, he squeaked through a couple matches at the World Games and then got knocked out. Ended up getting a bronze medal, finishing third by the skin of his teeth. But has not been that guy that we've seen in previous years. So I'm anxious to see how he does in Atlantic City too.
It's crazy to think about. We're like 30 minutes into a show, and this is the first time that we're bringing him up, and which is not usually the case because he's been a storyline for the last 5 years. Every time going into every single event. Um, yeah, I don't know what to make of him, Mike. I can remember like you mentioned times before in his career where like if someone's given him the business in a match, it's like all he needs is a window and he's taken over. And you
Right.
just knew he was going to take over. And once he got the opportunity, it was like, okay, this is when Josh is going to do what Josh does. Now I feel like there's a little bit more rattle in terms of like that consistency.
Yeah.
And I mean being able to like take over once you get the chance because Federer's the same way. You give him a window, he's going to go and take it. He's going to kick that window open and bust right through it. Where Josh, I feel like is still going to he's in this like weird spot where like he's having a fight. He's having to earn his way
What do you
through
think it is?
say that again.
What do you think it is?
I don't know because he comes out at the beginning of the year, snaps off the UK, and I just think, okay, he's gonna take over this season. Like that's what I thought, Mike. I thought he was gonna go. I don't want to say wire to wire because that's just ridiculous, but like he was gonna be in the thick and in the business end of every single tournament
Yeah.
and just be an absolute
I
monster
thought
of
he
the
was
club.
coming into this year with a chip on his shoulder, with
Yeah,
and yeah, I don't. It's just interesting. Not what I would have expected. I expected, a decade of,
and we may still get that, Mike. We don't know, right?
yeah, right. No, it's a lot of time to go, but
Yeah, I mean, and look, we measure guys like Josh and Josh in this conversation differently, because he has been such a proven winner and so decorated and has been so consistent in his short career, and we've seen him take over, we've seen him live up to that betting odds favorite going into a tournament. But outside of the UK, it just kind of feels like he's disappeared a little bit, at least on the Matchroom Major arena. I know he's won like Buffaloes and all these things like that, and was deep in Derby, et cetera, et cetera. And I get all that, and I'm not discrediting it, but like I want to see him go deep, and I want to see him be a storyline at the end of it. And look, this will be a great transition into the next topic here, Mike, because it was last year where he gets basically kicked out of Reyes Cup and Mosconi Cup. So like in the Josh conversation, I still feel like his ass still isn't safe. And Matchroom's never been on the record as far as like if is he eligible this year? Is he not eligible this year? What's different compared to last year? And for that matter, Mike, I don't even know when the cutoff is compared like for the Mosconi and Reyes.
last year the cutoff was the U.S. Open for Reyes Cup.
Okay,
This year,
is that
clearly, it's not because nobody has said a peep. So, it buys these guys at least an extra tournament with making the cut. So, I don't know when it'll be. I don't. I mean, I can't remember what the calendar is in terms of Hanoi, but that seems like it's a little close to Reyes Cup to not pull the trigger before then. So
Yeah, you're talking about like a couple weeks before, Mike. That's
yeah.
crazy. I
So,
mean,
but if you're Mantrum, you want to do it at the end of a major. You don't want to do it at the end of a
of course,
regional event
of
in
course.
Sacramento. So no offense, Oscar, but
Oh, easy, easy, buddy, easy. Sacramento's like the home away from home for me,
I
man.
know
All
I
right,
just kind of
take
popped
it
in my
easy.
head.
Yeah.
But so yes, you don't know what all these guys are just they don't know. They're just going to have to keep swinging and see when the deadline is. I think it's kind of weird and kind of dumb that we don't know at this point what the cutoff is for the Reyes Cup and Mosconi Cup, but it's not the U.S. Open, so everybody's getting another free swing after this. Um, so we'll see what happens. But yeah, Federer, where does he go between now and then? If he's a top three, he's a top three, then he'll be in. If he's not, it depends on how it lays out, right? I mean, Josh. So right now, I think the top three for the rest of the world is who is Little Kachi, um, FSR, and Federer. So if that ended today, Little Kachi, FSR, and Federer, and you got two wild cards, and one of them's going to Jason
FSR. He's
Shaw.
in the top three. He's in the top
Yeah,
three.
yeah.
Are we
And
going off of like 2 year or 1 year?
whatever Mantrum's going off of.
Look, Mike, this is like so. Here's the thing, Mike. I don't think it's weird, and I don't think it's dumb. I think it's point blank fucking ridiculous that at this point in the year we don't know when the cutoff is. Let's just call a spade, Mike. It's ridiculous. And when you listen, they've been promoting this aspect of like proper sport and things like that for the last couple of years, and then they'll turn it into a sideshow of Andy Goldstein and Barry playing in the event. And it's like I don't know what road that we're taking at this point in the year or at this year. You know, and I think like there's no other sport where like you get proper credibility, right? Like unless it's just your circus. But like there's no other sport where like imagine going into December not knowing like how you're gonna fit into the playoffs for the NFL. You know, how crazy would that be, Mike? Thinking about it from from that sports side of it, and so if you can, it's not for lack of posting or lack of awareness on social media. It's just this not wanting to answer a question. I feel like to some extent in regards to that, or maybe just give an answer without giving an answer.
Yeah,
Like we've gotten before. But I do think it's a little interesting to not interesting. I do think that it's I don't want to say shitty, but it's just maybe it's unfair to the players. Number one, unfair to the fans because it's and then it for me the storylines going into the U.S. Open were a big part of what made the U.S. Open so special for me, Mike. I was there the year when Alexa's in a semifinal, and you're wondering, can that dude go and win the match and basically get on a Mosconi Cup team? When Federer switches sides from Europe to USA, and I'm interviewing Ralph talking about him being, the pick for the Europeans, and then 2 weeks later he's the pick for the Americans, and it's like, but there's so many other stories to go along with it, and when you include the Reyes Cup aside of it and bigger prize money, and how these two events, the World Championship and the U.S. Open, are so weighted differently compared to other events, it's like the unknown part of it really kind of takes the fun out of the race and the season for me a little bit to some
it
extent,
does.
because
It
like
does.
what are we scoreboard watching for at this point, Mike? Like
Yeah,
I don't know who's gonna get on. I mean, listen, Carlo, you made a pal, right? Yep, you've been made a pal.
yeah,
Chula, you made a pal. I get all that. You know what I mean? Federer, you're on Team USA. You're gonna be on the Team Worlds. We get all that. But it's these like secondary stories that are really interesting, and these are what is going to be the makeup for a winning team or a losing team. You know, and are you going to get a rookie? Are you not going to get a rookie? Well, what rookie are you going to go and get? And so so many things that you can kind of go and dissect in the uncertainty of it or the unknown of it. just kind of takes away from, well, what am I going to be looking for this week? You know,
Right.
because there's plenty of guys that had the cutoff been the U.S. Open, maybe in terms of the European Mosconi Cup team or the Americans, it's like, okay, well, what's Jonas and Mickey going to do, right? Because those are the two guys that kind of come to mind in the year that they've been having, and so I don't want what's been so exciting to get watered down this year, and it feels like because of not knowing, it kind of does for me to some extent. Mike, does that make
Yeah,
sense?
there's no doubt that it's taken some of the luster off it. It's taken the scoreboard watching and the pontificating and all that kind of stuff is what made all this fun. And Matchroom's been very good
And it
about
made it like
milk that
sports,
through the
Mike.
course of a year. So, but now, like I said, we've got the Reyes Cup coming up, and the only major between now and the Reyes Cup is Hanoi. And you're telling me that you're going to wait until 2 weeks, 10 days or 2 weeks before the Reyes Cup to pick teams, that's really kind of weird to me. But
Yeah.
by the same token, if you're thinking from the standpoint of, okay, Hanoi's got some issues with competing tournament. Philippines Open has some issues with competing tournament, right? So
Yep.
you can assure yourself a few more players by making the Reyes cut off Hanoi and making the Mosconi cut off the Philippines Open, right? Because players who are on the border, on the fringe, and want that automatic payday got a pretty good shot.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Of
So,
course you could.
but the Philippines Open, that's far enough. That's over a month ahead of Mosconi. But the Hanoi Open being, I don't know what is the actual Hanoi Open ends on the 12th, and Reyes Cup starts on the 16th. How does that happen? Can't happen,
Listen,
right?
imagine that it is Hanoi for a second, Mike, right? And I'm some, with all due respect, like nobody regional player, right? Or like on the fringe kind of type player, right? I get selected to a Reyes Cup, right? Now I got a few days to like, hey mom, you want to come over? I'll book your flight for thousands of
You know,
dollars to go and come
it's
over
not even,
here.
it's not even a week. It's not even a week later.
It's
So
crazy,
you
Mike.
can't possibly. At least I don't think you can wait till Hanoi. So it's not the U.S. Open. We're just going to have some random date.
I just feel like it's kind of
Get
regressed
some
in
answers,
terms
would you
of,
please? I'm tired of asking the questions.
yeah. It just feels like it's kind of regressed in terms of professionalism in that regard, because you've 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 built this tour based off of merit, right? And we heard that word for so long, in terms of like invitationals and big events like a Reyes Cup or a Mosconi Cup or a World Pool Masters or World Cup of Pool, et cetera, right? PLP, right, which has kind of become like the social media open, basically. Because if you got a big following or you got a chance for a big upside, they're gonna go and invite you in there to that event,
I,
and
that's
and
what.
and I get it, right? But like for some of these more prestigious, like what you're earning your badges
Ones
for.
that should
You
be
know what I mean?
purely merit based.
Yeah, yeah.
Purely
And if
merit.
you're gonna look, Mike, and if you're gonna say, hey, I'm gonna have this event's gonna be all wild cards, fine. I'm good with it. You know what I mean? Like just, I mean, to some extent, I'll be good with it. But like, at
The
least come out
PLP
with it.
is.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I expect that at this point, you know. But it's one thing for some of these invitationals to kind of go away, or maybe not talked about, but they're not around anymore, or not around in the last couple of years. But then it's like some of these events that are now becoming staples, like a Reyes Cup, and especially this new twist on like who they're going to be playing against. It's just like I want to know what I'm looking for when the clock hits zero, and that's what, like when you watch, you can have spoilers in any sport, Mike, right? When you have a team who's whatever, like they're about to get the number one pick, right? They're a terrible team, but they can still go out there and knock somebody out of the playoffs. I love seeing stuff like that, Mike. You know what I mean? And you get that in sports, and you could have that to some extent in terms of pool. And for that matter, the guys who, like an Alexa, who I just mentioned, right? Who can go and earn his way on. A Victor comes to mind with a solid week next week. A Max Lechner, who has had real consistency over the course of the US Open, especially in the Matchroom era, And so it's like all these things, I want to know what I'm looking for and when I'm looking for them, but I don't know when that cutoff is, and so it's just it's a little, I don't want to say it's a little, it's pretty frustrating to not know at this point in the season, Mike, to say the least. But
Yeah.
in terms of some of these players, like we mentioned before, Mike mentioned Jonas and Mickey and all these guys. Give me your dark horse pick. I know you're picking SVB as a favorite and
No,
Fetter number two as a favorite. I already know how Uncle Mike goes. Give me some dark horses that you're looking for this week, Mike, and who you realistically think can go and snap this thing off.
I mean, truly dark horses, huh?
Yeah. Earl?
What do you consider dark? Is Mickey Krause a dark horse?
I mean, okay. Yeah. I mean, I think he's earned a little bit more respect on his name, maybe. But
Give you a name.
Who?
I'm going back to my favorite country in the world, Bernie Regulario.
Oh, now you're Team Philippines again.
Of course.
Bernie Regulario for the win. Isn't that who I had last for the World Championship, Mike?
Yeah, you did.
Yeah. Okay, so Bernie.
You got the Final Four, right?
Final
Four, yeah.
Yeah, Final Four. Four.
Yeah. No, I'll go Bernie Regulario.
I love that kid's game, man. I think he's got. I think like if you were to go and put his game on like a 29-year-old guy, I'd be like, oh, he's here, he's arrived, But like the age factor and the shakiness that can come with that, it still leaves me with some question marks. Although I'm excited to see how his tournament's going to go. Bernie's a good pick. Mickey would also be a good pick for a dark horse. Who else are you looking at, Mike, this week?
Well, I'm anxious to watch Claudio, see if he can keep up his form. He certainly has the talent, and he's a guy who doesn't seem to get flustered a lot. There's a lot of big names out there who are, who have really good shots. I mean, you look at FSR and David Alcade; they're just always around there, aren't they? They're just always around. When is one of them?
Do you think either one of those two gets in on points on the European team?
I think FSR still can.
Where's he at right now, Mike? Do we know? Or I mean, I
don't know. There's so many different freaking rankings. I can't stand it. On Team Europe, he's right now for Mosconi, he's number 3.
Okay.
In overall WNT rankings, he's number 7. That's overall. That's with the Asians and Fetter and Shane and everybody else. So, he still performs to the point where he gets, he's still got a lot of points. So, he's up there. A lot of options. The Cole brothers, and one of those gonna, all of a sudden catch fire. When they do, that's dangerous.
Scary for everybody. Yeah. Like I'll give you a dark horse who's not a dark horse, Mike, who maybe has a bit of a chip on his shoulder, similar to like a David and a Fran. How about the other Kachi brother who was in the finals of the World Championship last year? I'm sure he's got some things to prove, and maybe he may not feel so happy about being an afterthought at this point of the year, and can he still dominate like the way that we saw him before the injury?
I know some people who are wanting him to go deep just to see if he runs up against some other people who they want to go deep.
How big do you think like the betting on the rail would be with like a
if Kachi played like Chua in the final?
Yes, exactly where I was going to go. Either Kachi or Carlo is where I was going to go.
Tell you what, that would be who in the world wouldn't love that? I don't even, it's not even like I would have one that I'd be rooting for or against. I just think that would be as box office as pool gets in the pool community. Would anybody outside the pool community? You'd have to convince the outside world that this is the grudge match the world's waiting to see. But if Kachi faced Chua in the final, that'd be bonkers.
Let's fucking go, Mike. If it's Kachi versus Chua in the
social media would break. I don't care who wins, who loses, whatever. Social media would break.
Well, there's so many guys that can make big leaps in this tournament, especially considering the bigger prize fund compared to others, like we mentioned before. And guys figuring out different ways to get inspired is big with these bigger names, you know. And we mentioned this start the show, and I think in this example, it's going to play a bit of a role, you know. And I would be curious to see if Eklund's game can match what his social media feed has been like lately. You know, a lot of big chest and big barking and talking shit, and you know what I mean, like just keep it going. You know what I mean? And more importantly, have the game go alongside it. You know,
Yeah.
don't be too distracted by the outside to remember there's still a job to do here. You know, and so, but yeah, no, a lot of guys like that. I'm keeping an eye on. I want to see, I want to see a guy like a Victor or like a Max or maybe these guys who are kind of on that 7 to 15 kind of range, you know, and just make a big leap. Make a big leap, get into a semifinal,
Yeah.
turn the whole season on its head, put
Yeah.
everybody on edge, right? Send Josh to number 3 in rankings. Send, you know, the Asian team's pretty much locked up as far as top 3, but like really on the European side of things, you know, for a chance to get some rookies in there and then see how the rest of the season can kind of shake out, you know, is kind of what I'm hoping for. I don't. I want to dive into the draw, and we'll probably won't be able to get to it here on this show. But like, and I want to kind of analyze it to see who's who's got a easier walk versus others. You know what I mean, and how they can kind of parlay that into a deeper run. And I know it. Listen, when it gets down to 64, that's when the tournament really starts, and I get that. But
Right.
just as far as like getting comfortable and things like that, Mike, does that make sense?
I can't wait for the first match.
Who's the first match?
Federer Gorst against Reggie Jackson.
Federer.
I
Who the fuck is Reggie?
Reggie. I just love that he's playing Mr. October in August.
Oh, there you go. There you go, Mr. October.
He's playing a guy named Reggie Jackson. That's the coolest thing ever.
I don't know what's worse, the fact that your age is showing or the fact that I get that reference and then my age is showing, Mike. I used to have a Reggie Jackson poster when I was a kid, man. He was a great player.
You go. Reggie so that would be a killer. No, we didn't talk about, but someone just brought up Jesus Atencio.
Well, okay. Let's talk about him then, Mike.
I'd love to see him make a run. I mean, we've been waiting for him for the last couple of years to get back into it a little bit more because we loved him 3 years ago. I remember talking to a couple of Q companies and equipment companies 3 years ago. Listen, this is a guy you should tap into if you're looking for someone to sponsor that you can hang a little marketing campaign around. This kid's got the look, he's got the game, he's he's a sharp kid, and then he just kind of disappeared for a couple of years, but played really well in Florida. I'd love to see him make a nice run here.
Couldn't agree more, and really, really put more of what the Latin American team can do kind of on his back. We've seen that already in terms of the Spaniards and their accomplishments, and they've been great ambassadors for that part of the world, in all aspects. But Jesus, let me tell you something, Mike, at least a few years ago, and I know that Florida was kind of like the first glimpse back into seeing them into like deep competition. Jesus is the real deal. And I said it I said it years ago when I thought, hey, listen, this kid's got world championship pedigree written on him. I really feel that way. And I hate to say it, but I don't hate to say it. It's reality. Like it's lack of opportunity for whatever reason,
right.
and this new era pool is like, if you can have a great run compared to all these intangibles, and he's got the look, he's got the game, he's got the finesse, he's got all these like exciting aspects to his game that like would make him well for marketing as well, Mike.
Yeah.
And
that's what I said. I was like, this kid's made to order for a marketing campaign, and you just have to get him out there in front of people. I mean, people like watching him play. He's good to look at. He's fun to watch because he's he plays so well, and he's got a really aggressive, stylish game. And what's not to love? So yeah, love to see him to make a deep run.
The kid's just smooth. You know, he's absolutely smooth whenever he goes out there and plays. If he's got that break dialed in, like his 10 ball break is phenomenal. You know,
Yeah.
but if he can find that 9 ball break, look out because I think he's got everything else to kind of put together that can complement an already great style of play. Now, like the deer on ice kind of factor you know, will be real to some extent because he's never been there before. And like, listen, the Florida Open, great tournament and all, but like it ain't the U.S. Open. You know, let him
No,
go out there.
if you need something to loosen your arm up and get your
Oh
confidence
yeah,
going and go into the U.S. Open with a little bit of, you
yeah.
know, uh, that was it. I mean, that was the perfect precursor to okay, I can do
That's the
this.
springboard. I agree with you, Mike, 100%. Yeah. I mean, that'll be the one where it's just like, okay, you're gonna feel a little bit more comfortable in that water, you know. But listen, get out there on in Atlantic City in the single table part of the tournament, you know, because that's whenever like you'll see guys' arms kind of shake a little bit compared to other times. And look, I would love to see a story like that could really just change the dynamic of like the global part of pool because you know what opportunities can go and come out of that region. Is he going to be another? Are they going to add him on to the Team USA eligibility? Because then if not, you're going to have a bunch. If it is, I mean, you can have a lot of American fans thrilled and be wearing Jesus Atencio patches and shirts and all this shit, you know,
Yeah,
because um, they'll be glad and welcoming of him, and he's just a good kid. On top of that, you know. Um, I
I
love his game. I love his fight. I want to see more of him. I hope that he gets more opportunity, but like at the same time, the reality is the little opportunities you do get, you better go out there and handle it, you know, because
yeah,
now for him, he has got some momentum on his side from a number of different aspects coming into the US Open. Go and capitalize on it. You know, don't disappear in the round of 64 or
yeah,
whatever. You know what I mean? Because if he does have a couple of good wins, and then with the potential, they'll start throwing his ass on TV table, and
yeah.
he can become a mainstay, and that can parlay into PLPs. That can do so many things for his career. You know, so
I do want to say that all this is not anything against you, Matt Ross.
who's he playing? Matt's my buddy, man. Don't give Matt a hard
Matt
time.
just said he's playing Matt in the first round. Matt just said I'm
Oh yeah, that's
first
the
round
reason why I
upset for
said that.
Jesus. I'm
He's
like, okay.
I was just looking at the draw myself.
Matt, you take your best swing. I want to see this guy get pushed at
Hey,
least.
look,
So give it a whack.
Matt had a pretty good run at the Derby 2 years ago, if I remember right. So, or maybe it was last year, or this year, I should say. He's a great guy, by the way, and I really enjoy seeing him every year at Derby City. We get to play some on the Bigfoot after hours every year whenever I'm out there in Louisville, thanks to him. So, but yeah, no, I listen. Guys like that are gonna, and that's who I would consider like a dark horse, like we mentioned before. Mike is a kid like Jesus, you know,
Yeah.
because he's got a little bit of momentum. Yeah, he's been on the radar, but not really been on the radar, you know. And now that you got everybody noticing you, and everybody does, it's like go out there and take a little bit of control of your opportunity here, you know.
So
It's
what do you think? You predicting a first time winner?
Yes, I am. I am. And I was going to ask you this too. It's surprising that you bring that up, but like I do think it's going to be a first time winner. I do. I think like compared to other years. And listen, as much as I would love to see,
No Federer, no Shane, no Josh,
no,
no Tran.
nope, nope,
Uh,
nope, 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 no Carlo.
Carlo
Yeah,
Biado.
no.
Oh yeah, he has won the U.S.
He
Open.
beat
Yeah,
he beat Yap
Carlo.
in the U.S. Open. Yeah, yeah.
Right, right. So
And
yeah,
it's no knock on any of these guys, Mike. It's no knock on.
picture early on.
Yeah, look, it's
Okay,
no disrespect to any of these
give me
guys who
the
have won.
previous. You give me the previous winners. I'll give you the field. We'll make a bet.
Yeah, no kidding, right? I mean, listen, if I were to tell you, Mike, honestly, if I were to go and say, hey, listen, Mike, you got the top 10 of the field, top 10 players on tour. I get to pick the ranking, by the way, and I'll give you whatever rank. Well, actually, you know what? You can pick the ranking, whether it's the 1 year or the 2 year or whatever, right? I'll give you top 10 guys versus the field. Who would you take?
I'm a front runner. I'm going with top 10 guys.
I know you are. See, I'm asking you a question that I already know the answer to, Mike.
It's just because I have such respect for these guys who've done it before and who I see still at the top of the game. You look at these guys who are ranked in the top 10, whether it's 2 year, 1 year. You look at the guys who are the top odds bets in the online betting, and no shock that 8 out of 10 of them are former U.S. Open winners, and
Okay.
not like the last 2 years. So these are all guys who are still at the top of the game and have won this tournament before. They're awfully hard to bet against.
Okay, so let me just run down some of the betting odds according to Bet 365.
So
Um,
you start with Federer, 7-1,
six,
right?
six. Yeah, I had it 6-1 when I screenshotted it, but yeah, about same.
He's
Six.
he's won it.
Okay.
Shane,
Winner.
8-1. He's
Yep.
won. Josh, 10-1. He's won
Yep.
it.
Yep.
Yep, no, has not. Carlo, 14-1. He's won it. Fran, 14-1. He's won it. So you've got all those guys right at the top who are the betting favorites and who are still ranked in the top 10, and they've all won it. So it's a tough group to bet against. So yeah, I'd take them over the field. I'd take top 10 over the field.
It is a tough field to bet against. And one thing that really shocks me right here, Mike, is looking at the odds. They got Jason at 20-1 and Little Co at 25-1. When anybody wanted to take Jason in a last longer versus Little Co, I'll gladly take some of that action because that's crazy. Nope, like I feel like it's incredibly disrespectful to Ko Ping Chung, considering the run that he's had in this tournament over the last couple of years.
It's not a tournament. It's not. It's not a tournament preview without you throwing shade on Jason's odds.
No, man. Well, I mean, look, he's won the U.S. Open. He beat Kachi, right, all those years ago in the U.S. Open, right? Look, I'm just thinking about it, and it's low hanging fruit, but like, look, outside of Hanoi, we ain't seen the dude. You know what I mean? So like, and I get his box office, Mike. I know that dude's resume on the
Mosconi stage. On that one every preview.
No, it's just shocking to me. Like listen, and I get if you're fishing for bets, but just look at him: 20-1 for Jason, 25-1 for Little Co.
See, the Ladbrokes odds have Little Co at 20 and Jason at 25.
Ah, okay. Well, then if that's in that regard, it's a lot more. That's a lot more respectful. You know what I mean? On the Bet 365 one, it's just a little disrespectful. You know what I mean? Little Co is a fucking monster on that stage. I know he's been paying Chinese 9-ball or 8-ball, whatever, for the last couple of weeks, but like, that dude's pocketing is going to be unreal. And if he can figure out that break over the course of the next 4 days, look out, because he's another one of these guys who has the history of winning this tournament and winning it in style, right? Against, like a Yap a few years ago. So in the semifinal, I should say. So, but no, look, all those guys, Jason included, listen, them being in the top 10 they've earned to be part of that conversation, and it's no knock on any of these past champions. And like a lot of guys, I feel like they'll get recognition without the success. And I'm not saying it like in regards to Jason. I just mean like in generalities, where like some players will get a lot more favor in terms of their popularity or be talked about more, but like they haven't had the consistency that some of these other guys have had. Like, look, a lot of these players who are mentioned on these top 10 odds, Mike, like I would, if you're talking about just from a respect standpoint, you better throw Mickey in there and you better throw Jonas in there because they've been doing some pretty good things on the WNT tour this year. Even a kid like Appius comes to mind as well, who the last couple of years has been playing pretty solid pool. So it's like, it just depends on through what lens you're looking at it through. But this is part of what makes like sweating an event like the US Open so fun, is being able to talk about so many different aspects and why you're rooting for a guy and why you think this is going to happen or why you think it's not going to happen, because there's so many different legs that you can kind of go and stand on. But at the end of the day, even a guy like Jason, look, he's been in this opportunity and been in that Mosconi arena because of what he's accomplished on that table, and part of that has been a US Open championship as well, and so that's not something that anybody can go and take away from you.
Yeah, right. No,
and so, and I would love, look, as great as he is for everything else outside of the table, from a storyline standpoint, Mike, and what he brings to like a rivalry aspect of pool. And there's very few guys who have that. I would love to see Jason in there in a Final Four because he'd be a great story and he's exciting to go and watch, right? So there's so many different ways that you can kind of chop that up. But I think though, I do think it'll be a first timer winning it. I think it'll be one of these unproven commodities to this point that'll go out there. Huh?
What continent?
Well, you brought up
Europe, we go North America, we go in South America.
Boy, oh boy, that's a good question. No, I'm take it for me. It's a no brainer. I'd probably pick Asia, and I'll you can have whoever you want. You can have the Americans, you can have Europeans. I'll take Team Asia.
Asia against the field.
Yeah, I would take Asia versus the field for sure.
Yeah.
Look, they're too strong. They're too strong, and like I know we talk about like big stage experience and the spotlight and the single table formats and all these things, but like when you're hungry, Mike, when your family depends on you, right? When you don't have any opportunities and you're just fighting and clawing for like to get some kind of traction in the global feed of pool, on top of the fact that like you've grown up gambling your whole life, right? And playing big money matches and what that has done for literally putting food on your table. I just feel like you're built different. You're tougher here, you're tougher here, and you don't give up. And there's few guys who have that. There's even fewer guys who are decorated and then they still have that, because it's hard for these bigger guys to continue to have that kind of drive and fight. And that's part of what makes like how they build their legacy so awesome to go and watch, like an SVB who's in back-to-back finals, but no, I'm taking Team Asia for sure. I think that they're way too deep, and I don't care. Taiwanese, check. Filipinos, check. I'll take them all. Whoever, anybody and anyone. Give me the cab driver. I got half his buy-in as well. Whoever we gotta go and put in the tournament, I'm taking it because I can literally go and look through this field, Mike. Even a guy like a Roland who was in the finals of the one pocket at the Battle of the Bull. Tell me he can't make a run. Now I know it's a long shot, but like I'm just giving you an example. You know what I mean? And then you mix in these young Filipinos on top of that. It's like, man, I want to see him. I want to see what it could do for them. I want to see what it could do for their region. I want to see what it can do for pool in a global aspect. I think there's so many different things that could happen off the table that can be positive from that happening, that like it makes it even me rooting for them even more worth it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure.
But Josh is still there. Federer's still there. Yeah. Shane's still there. Fran's still there. Carlo, I mean, you name it. Shaw, like you mentioned, Yap, all these guys who have just had monster years and monster seasons, like they're still going to be tough outs, so yeah, I guess
Earl in it. Did you notice whether his name was in there?
Yeah, he's got to be in there. They've been promoting his ass like
okay.
That's
one of the cool things about the U.S. Open that Barry Berman started was that if you won the U.S. Open, you have an entry to next year. You have an entry forever.
Yeah.
And he will cover your entry fee.
Yep.
Right. So, and Matchroom has continued that, which is really cool. And so, I think that's one of those legacy things with a tournament like this that makes it even more prestigious than it was. All these guys show up. Mika's going to be there. Ralph is going to be there. Earl's going to be there.
Tell me that wouldn't be a story, Mike. Tell me Mika Immonen.
Rodney Morris is playing. Mika's playing. All these guys are playing. I think that's really cool.
No, I couldn't agree with you more, Mike. And that's a really great point to touch on because it is super important. And legacy and history and roots go a long way in developing any sport, and remembering, legends, especially guys who still have some gas in the tank, like a Mika. It's like, I would love to see them go on another run and
Alex Lyons playing.
Alex playing pretty sporty lately too, Yeah, so many different guys to go and keep an eye on. And you can literally make arguments for so many of them. And when you said earlier on in the show, like 30 guys can go and win it. And then I kind of stopped for a second. I'm like, 30 seems a little steep. But then you think about it, it's like, well, 30 really isn't that steep. It really isn't. There's a lot of guys who can do damage.
Yeah.
And but look, I think it'll be a young end to this tournament, is what I think. Whether it's somebody from the Asian circuit going and getting his place on the stage, or a young European. That kid from Germany is playing pretty good. And I ain't talking about Moritz, and I ain't talking about Filler. You know, that kid Felix is playing pretty solid, Mike.
Yeah,
And
but you're
so,
talking about winning 7, 8 matches in a row like that.
say that again.
You're talking about winning 7 or 8 matches in a row like that.
No, I know. And
That's
listen,
that's when it becomes a little bit. It starts to weigh on you after a while if you're a young kid like that. So, but yeah, could he do it? Sure. I think when you look at the young kids who can do it, you look at Claudio. He's the number one kid of that age group that could do it, and you wouldn't be surprised. Okay, Felix, you're going to be shocked. If Yannick Pranger's you're going to be shocked. But if someone like Claudio went and won it, would you be as shocked? Because he's just
hold on. If the last month of pool didn't happen, yeah, you would be. But like now, you wouldn't be. Or at least like
even before that, people were telling you this guy is the real deal. He's the snooker player. He has to get in here more, but he's got the game and he's got the temperament to do it. And now that we've seen him out there a little bit more, it's just
yeah. Well,
shocking to me.
Look, the cold-blooded factor that Harley gets talked about is something that I value a lot, Mike, in terms of the eye test, and how guys can shake against bigger names or not shake against bigger names is something that I look for all the time whenever I'm watching. And it's the body language. It's how you're sitting in your seat. It's how you're looking after a miss. It's how you're handling the runouts that you're supposed to go and get. It's one thing if you're having to go and claw and scratch away like Carlo did during a few of those wrecks against Federer, but it's nothing when you have like a cupcake out and you don't get there, and how that can go and fuck with you mentally. I've seen that tear some guys down, Mike, who have never recovered. All right, what I'm talking about. But it's when you see where it doesn't phase you, that's when, oh man, he can be something dangerous.
Dangerous, yeah.
He can be something really, really dangerous, because
that's what it takes to win that 8 matches in a row, because you're not going to have 8 matches where you play great.
Yeah, no, you're not.
You're going to have to grind through a couple. You're going to have to get lucky in a couple. You're going to have to come from behind in a couple. Usually that's the case. So you need someone with the temperament that can handle all those different ups and downs.
Yeah, no, and look, listen, for him being where he's at in terms of standings, I don't feel like there's maybe enough, like, as much pressure, obviously, because there's some comfort there. But then he's still young and hungry. So then, how is his game and all the opportunities going to go and come together for him? He's a great kid to watch. I would love to see him in a Final 8. And I think the Final 8 is about where he'll be at in this tournament. Not to say that he can't get further, because we've seen him go further, even just this year. But I don't know if I'm going to see it in this event. I think it'll be really telling if you start seeing some crazy drive out of that kid, that maybe there were some question marks in terms of big brother, work ethic, things like that. It's like, if you start seeing this kid still inspired and hungry and pushing and fighting and clawing and all these things, it's like, man, I want to see more aspects to his game. And for that matter, there may be some kids who have that, who we haven't seen. Maybe we'll see it this week as well, Mike, so match start tomorrow. You guys can go sweat it on WNT TV. My babies just got here, so I'm gonna go and hang out with the girls. I haven't seen them in a few weeks, Mike. So anyhow, you guys and girls go. I'll fix your phone just a minute, Mama. You guys and girls go and enjoy your day. Mike, are you gonna be here? Are you gonna be around this week before you take off to AC?
I head out to AC Thursday morning, so I'll be here Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
So can we count on you to do a show?
What's that?
Can I count on you to do a show?
Can I count?
Or more importantly, can
you showing up?
Look, it's tough when I'm on the road. Poor Mike was waiting around last week, and I told him, yeah, tomorrow we'll do it. And I'm texting him, and then time rolls around, and I'm like, fuck, man. And there's nobody like listen, I love respecting people's time, especially yours, Mike. Even though we're really good friends and like family at this point, but like it kills me whenever I don't show up on time for you, man, or when I say I will. So I
I'm
do
here.
appreciate you putting up with my ass. So, anyhow, keep your notifications on. We're gonna be live every day. We'll be doing update shows every day. So, hang out, enjoy the event, and we'll see all you guys and gals.